Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of the World Report. Viewers, I'm Arjun Samar Mahindran and here's what's making headlines around the world. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is currently on a two-day visit to India, has arrived at the Hyderabad House for bilateral talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, earlier in the day, he was welcomed with the ceremonial guard of honor by the President's bodyguard at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He was received by President Draupadi Murmu and PM Narendra Modi together at the venue. And after that, he visited Rajghat in New Delhi to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us from right outside Bharat Mandapam. But before that, for our viewers who are just joining in, our top story on the World Report this Friday, viewers, Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is on a two-day visit to India, has arrived at the Hyderabad House for bilateral talks with his close friend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, earlier on Friday, he was welcomed with the ceremonial guard of honor by none other than the President's bodyguard at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He was received by President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the venue. After that, he visited the Rajghat in New Delhi to pay homage to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us from right outside Bharat Mandapam, where Russian President Putin is slated to head next. Vishal, what's the sense of anticipation you're picking up in the air, and what does this visit signify and signal in the larger, broader perspective?
Well, Arjun, it's quite noisy here. From what I could hear, you asked about what is anticipated here. Well, the anticipation is at an all-time high because you can see right behind me there are hundreds of delegates who have assembled here from across India and across the Russian territory. They've all come here to explore different business opportunities in India. India, they say, is the next big destination for them because so far it's been sort of an untapped potential that the Russian side has not explored. And that is what the Russian side would want to explore now. And the Russian president's press secretary has already said that the Russian side is already, heavily thinking on that side. That will also, come into picture because the trade imbalance that has been there for a while, especially in the wake of the coronavirus and especially in the wake of the the tariffs that have been levied on India, the 50% tariffs, the new trade imbalance has emerged. That will be tackled through the business meetings here. Putin is also expected to meet at Bharat Mandapam various business leaders from the Indian territory. That will also shed light on what will happen in the days to come. But one of the biggest things to happen could be the exchange of skilled workers that could go from Indian territory to the Russian territory to work. At least 500,000 workers are required in the Russian territory to take this forward. So we'll have some heavy discussions on that front.
Right. Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest. And viewers, as my colleague Vishal Vivek was pointing there, from the already defense deals to more deals, including the transfer of workers, many big ticket announcements still expected there. Now we shift our focus to the west, where the US military has confirmed yet another strike on a small boat in the Caribbean, killing 4 men on board. Now it's the latest in a months-long operation that has now left more than 80 people dead. To be precise, viewers, this is the 22nd strike after the September 2nd strike, the contentious September 2nd strike, investigations over which are still ongoing. Meanwhile, this new attack now comes as investigators are digging into an earlier September strike where a vessel was reportedly hit twice, once while survivors were still clinging on to the wreckage as well. Now, the White House claims the operations follow the laws of war, but legal experts, however, opine that targeting unarmed civilians could very well also qualify as a war crime. Now, all of this is unfolding as US warships are continuously massing near Venezuela, adding more pressure to an already volatile standoff. In the Middle East, Israel's military said it struck 2 targets in 2 southern Lebanese towns on Thursday. Now, the strikes, viewers, followed after ordering the evacuations of 2 buildings Israel alleged were being used by Hezbollah militants. About an hour after the initial warning, the army's Arabic spokesperson issued another notice. The second notice instructed residents of buildings in 2 other towns to leave as well. Now, the strikes They come just a day after Israeli and Lebanon sent civilian envoys to a committee overseeing a fragile ceasefire agreed to a year ago that both sides have in fact accused the other of breaking or violating in this case. Over in the US, the New York Times has filed a lawsuit on Thursday against the Pentagon, attempting to overturn new rules imposed by US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, or the Secretary of War, as he is now called. Now, these new rules that have been imposed by Pete Hegseth banished most mainstream media from the building, being the Pentagon. The newspaper said the rules violate the Constitution's freedom of speech and due process provisions as well. Now, since they gave Hegseth the power to determine on his own whether a reporter should be banned or not. Meanwhile, outlets such as The Times walked out of the Pentagon rather than agree to the rules as a precondition for getting a press credential altogether. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said on Thursday that the findings of an inquiry into a 2018 nerve agent attack have showed Russia's shocking and reckless hostile activity on his country's soil. The UK government has said Russia's GRU military intelligence agency was being sanctioned in entirety for these reckless acts. Now, this includes the attack on the city of Salisbury that targeted a former GRU officer, Sergei Skripal. Now, Skripal was imprisoned in Russia in 2006 for spying for the UK. He was later released as part of a 2010 spy swap and eventually settled down in the UK. We get you more.
But this report is clear. Moral responsibility lies with Putin, and it's further evidence of the shocking and reckless, hostile activity on UK soil. And so it's very important that we put in the most stringent sanctions on the GRU for the first time, but it also reinforces why we need to remain vigilant to the ever-present threat that is there from Putin and from Russia. That's not just in Ukraine. In this case, the report is clear. It's on our soil.
During the Christmas tree lighting ceremony over at the White House in D.C., US President Donald Trump said he was happy to have settled the war between Rwanda and Congo. Congo president and Rwandan presidents have signed a deal aimed at ending the conflict in eastern Congo and opening access to the region's critical minerals. Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, has said some proposals in a US plan to end the war in Ukraine are unacceptable to the Kremlin, indicating in comments published Thursday that any deal is still some ways off.
America is back, bigger and better, stronger, better than ever before. Think of it. And we're making peace all over the world. We're settling wars at levels that nobody's ever seen before. 8 of them. We're looking for one more. That's Russia, Ukraine, if that's possible. And I think we'll get there eventually.
Over in the Americas, Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on Thursday lashed out at the US amid growing tensions between the two nations. Now, the reaction follows after an announcement by Donald Trump that the airspace of the South American country should be considered closed. Rodriguez told the National Assembly in Caracas that there is no submission, no subordination in remarks about the US. Here's more.
En franca violación de la soberanía, porque el único ente, órgano autorizado para controlar las operaciones aéreas de nuestro espacio aéreo es el Instituto Nacional de la Aeronáutica Civil, INAC, un organismo del Ministerio del Poder Popular para el Transporte. Bueno, en el año 2025, octubre, fíjense cómo se habían incrementado las llegadas internacionales. ¿Qué buscan ellos con esta política guerrerista, amenazante y agresiva? Tienen un objetivo estratégico que es la economía venezolana. Bueno, ya el presidente Maduro instruyó un plan para garantizar la llegada de quienes estaban varados y que puedan cumplir su itinerario quienes tienen previsto viajar en las Navidades.
A delegation of representatives from 15 member states of the United Nations Security Council visited Syria on Thursday for the first time since the Council's founding back in 1945. Now, this visit comes just ahead of the one-year anniversary of the fall of former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in a lightning rebel offensive. It also marks the country's continued integration into the international fold under its new government. Now, this government is headed by former Islamist insurgent leader turned interim president Ahmad al-Shara. We get you more.
Throughout the day, we engage on a wide range of issues, including justice and reconciliation, inclusivity of political process and national dialogue, on humanitarian issues, on reconstruction, economic development issues, political transition, counter-terrorism, as well as the need for Syria not to be the source of threat to the security of other countries.
UK Ambassador to France Charles Kushner on Thursday held his first public event at the ambassador's residence in capital Paris. Now, the event comes ahead of a year of celebrations in 2026 for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence was officially and unanimously adopted on the 4th of July in 1776. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo, various officials and a few media were present for the occasion. Here's Kushner for you.
It's part of our objective of the embassy, and one of my primary roles as ambassador to really help the American companies grow in France and help the French companies grow in America. Because I think true partnerships is really about win-win, not win-lose. And we approach every situation that it could be a win for America because we're representing America. But I think as America wins, France also wins, and vice versa.
France, where President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in China's Chengdu. It's the capital of southwest China's Sichuan province. Now, at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping, Macron's paying a state visit to China between Wednesday and Friday. A meeting in the Chinese capital, Beijing, on Thursday produced 12 cooperation agreements covering topics like population aging, nuclear energy, and even panda conservation. It is Macron's fourth state visit to China for perspective and only his first trip to the Sichuan province. We take you over to Honduras, where presidential candidate Salvador Nasrallah said last-minute interference from US President Donald Trump in the country's closely fought election has damaged his chances of winning. Three-time presidential candidate Nasrallah, who describes himself as center-right, said that Trump's surprise endorsement last week of the conservative candidate Nasri Asfura had flipped the race entirely. News from the land down under now, viewers. Australia's internet regulator has said a teen social media ban would be the first domino to fall in a global push to rein in big tech. Now, the statement comes as Meta's Instagram, Facebook, and Threads began locking thousands of accounts ahead of a deadline next week. E-Safety Commissioner, meanwhile, Julie Grant, has said she initially expressed concern about the blunt force approach of blocking under 16s from social media. However, she had come to embrace it after incremental regulatory changes were not effective enough. Rumeza Ozturk appeared in a Boston federal court to ask a judge to reinstate her student record in the US, saying, or rather contending in this case, she has been unable to teach or serve as a research assistant without it. Now, only earlier this year, viewers, a Tufts University graduate student and a Fulbright scholar, Ozturk, was detained for 6 weeks after being arrested on a suburban Boston street over an opinion piece. Now, the graduate co-wrote the article criticizing her school's response to the war in Gaza. After her release, Ozturk returned to Tufts but was unable to pursue work opportunity. Here's Ozturk for you.
For the first time as a scholar and as a woman, I have been denied my education. Because of this, I couldn't contribute to children's podcast project or teach at my university. Going through this brutality, which began with an unlawful arrest and 45 days of detention at a shameful for-profit ICE prison in Louisiana, I feel now more connected to everyone whose educational rights are denied. In addition to all the precious lives taken in Palestine, it is such a big loss that we will never be able to learn from the perspectives of the scholars needlessly murdered in Gaza or access knowledge from the destroyed universities.
In the run-up to 2026, viewers, Russian bookstores have begun selling calendars with images of Russian President Vladimir Putin as a New Year gift, as we've seen, a trend we've seen through the years. Now, residents in the Russian capital expressed mixed views about buying or giving such an item as a New Year's gift. Take a look.
А у меня есть часы с его портретом настенные.
Но вот такой календарь вы купили себе?
Ну, вы знаете, потом, когда он истечет, куда девать, выбросить, жалко. А у ну вот, нехорошо это. Так же, как и календари, которые посвящены библейским сюжетам.
Я больше люблю лошадей, зайчиков и кошечек, и собачек.
Romanians have begun enjoying Christmas markets recently opened in capital Bucharest, even as some visitors have questioned the sheer scale of these displays. Now, several squares in the Romanian capital Bucharest were illuminated at the start of December itself, with some displays switched on as early as November. Romania's government is pursuing measures to reduce the budgeted deficit. It stood at over 9% in 2024, one of the highest in the 27-nation European Union. Not only this, the country has agreed with the EU to reduce the deficit to 8.4% this fiscal year. We get you some reactions on this.
E foarte frumos, e foarte frumos, e reușit, dar aș avea eu ceva de spus. Suntem în austeritate.
Cam multă bogăție.
Cam prea mult afișat. În condițiile astea trebuia puțin un semnal așa de alarmă, să fim mai...
A pair of Asiatic lions have arrived at a British zoo as part of efforts to protect the highly endangered species from extinction. Now, a male named Nile and a female named Shanti arrived at Chester Zoo, and after being matched following careful genetic analysis as part of an international conservation breeding program. Meanwhile, conservationists have said that the pair have formed a good connection, and they also expressed hope that the pair would go on to eventually mate. Chester Zoo is a British conservation zoo and has a track record in safeguarding the survival of Asiatic lions. And viewers, Santa Claus arrived on Thursday by jet ski at Rio de Janeiro's Copacabana beach, as you see on your screens right there. Now, the arrival is part of a project to give children with a range of conditions a joyful day. Dozens of children with disabilities have come together for the Christmas celebration organized by the city's firefighters and local non-profits. Now, this is exactly where they receive gifts and festive cheer from Santa himself. The project, meanwhile, aims to give children with a range of conditions, including childhood cancer, syndrome disabilities, and rare diseases, a rather memorable day. Here's more.
Eu amei, particularmente, que pra gente é também uma forma de sair da rotina, né, trazer a criança, ela brincar, interagir, porque eu moro dentro de uma comunidade, sabe que não tem muita coisa para se viver lá. E quando tem essas coisas, eu não perco a oportunidade, né, adora.
Well, with that, it's time we step into a short break, viewers. Much more lined up on the other side. Needless to say, don't you go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. We take you to the UK next, where capital London is having a super Bollywood moment with a bronze statue of none other than Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol Alveen at the very iconic Leicester Square as part of the 30-year celebrations of the iconic Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, or DDLJ as it's famously known. It's a bronze statue of Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol as their characters Raj and Simran has been installed at the Leicester Square in London. My colleague Radhika Iyer brings you more.
It was an unforgettable moment for Indian cinema, with London's Leicester Square now welcoming for the first time an Indian moment or a Bollywood moment in the square, which has some greats from across the world. That is a bronze statue of Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol, and that is a celebration of Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, which we know has been a timeless love story, loved across the globe, now standing as a bronze statue right in the middle of London. The statue unveiled by Raj and Simran themselves.
Well, that's all the updates we have for you this Friday. Take care and have a wonderful weekend, viewers.